Welcome back to Joyfully at Home. Today we are going to make cupcakes. And you might think, well, cupcakes are kind of an old thing and not very special. These cupcakes are a specialty of mine that I've had people ask for numerous times. They're kind of, if you want to call my thing. They're a little bit different as in the way that they're filled cupcakes. And the combination is something everybody always loves. So today we're going to go ahead and show you how to make my chocolate peanut butter filled cupcakes. So these cupcakes start out with a scratch chocolate cake, which is a very simple chocolate cake recipe. And it's one that will never fail you. It's always super moist, really delicious. So we start off with all of our dry ingredients, which we have 2 cups of sugar and 2 cups of flour. And it's always good to add your cocoa to begin with because you can mix it in with your other dry ingredients and it gets mixed evenly. And with our cocoa, we have 3/4 of a cup of unsweetened baking cocoa. So now that we have our cocoa, our flour, and our sugar in here, we're going to go ahead and add 2 teaspoons of baking soda, teaspoon of baking powder, and a teaspoon of salt. I'm going to just let that mix up to combine well. So now that you have your dry mixture all completely combined, then we'll add all of our wet ingredients and get those incorporated. We start with a teaspoon of vanilla. We have 2 large eggs, 1 cup of milk, and that can be whole milk, 2%, whatever you have is fine. That doesn't make a difference. 1 cup of oil, again, can be regular vegetable oil, can be coconut oil, whichever you prefer. And then 1 cup of hot water. This hot water will help to go ahead and absorb your dry, and it makes your cake even more tender. So now we go ahead and we will mix again and make sure everything is mixed thoroughly to a nice smooth cake batter. Now that your cake batter looks to be nicely blended and well incorporated, you just give it a quick scrape along the bottom just to make sure there aren't any little hidden pockets of flour or sugar or anything like that in there, and everything is nicely moistened. It's a fairly thin cake batter. You'll see it's not super thick, and that's exactly the way it's supposed to be. So now we'll go ahead and we will go ahead and start filling our cupcake liners. Now the way I go about this is I just take a ladle and I just fill my cupcake liners about half to 2/3 full for each one. You'll get about 24 to 30 cupcakes depending on how full you get your cupcake liners. And if you're using bigger cupcake liners too, of course, you're going to get a little bit less. But if you're not big into cupcakes and you'd prefer this as just a chocolate cake, you can absolutely do that too. Just make sure that you prepare your pan by greasing and flouring your cake pan. And you can use this just as a nice old-fashioned chocolate cake as well. And sometimes you get a little messy, and that's all right too. We'll clean our pan up before it goes in the oven. Now that we have our cupcake wrappers and our tin full, about 2/3 full, we'll go ahead and we're going to put them in a 350-degree oven for about 15 minutes until the tops just start to spring back. You definitely don't want to overbake your cupcakes because then they're going to be very dry. So, but this recipe, I've actually never had a bad cupcake come from this recipe. They're always moist and always a very nice light crumb. So you just go about 15 minutes until the top of it just starts to spring back. You'll pull them, we'll let them cool, and then we'll get ready for our filling and our icing. Now that your cupcakes are out of the oven, we just need them to cool completely. You definitely don't want to try to ice or fill cupcakes that are too warm still, because you'll wind up with a runny mess. So you want to set them aside to cool completely until you do any filling or icing of them. So we're going to go ahead and set them aside while we go ahead and we make our icing and our filling. Our icing and our filling essentially are the same item, except for once we have our icing made, then we go ahead and we will take out a portion of that and add softened cream cheese to our filling portion. And then that will be the cupcake filling. At the center is a nice creamy peanut butter with a little bit of a cream cheese flavor to it, so it's a super smooth, silky filling. And then our icing essentially is a typical peanut butter and butter mixture with your sugars to make your icing. So we're going to go ahead and get started on that while our cupcakes are cooling. Okay, for our peanut butter icing, we're just going to start with a stick of butter, or a half a cup. I'm going to get that in our mixer. So any kind of peanut butter you like, even natural peanut butter works just fine in this. So you can use any kind of creamy peanut butter you like. And the reason I say creamy is because if you do use crunchy, then you've got to deal with the peanuts in your icing, which can be good, but they can also clog up your icing bag. So that might be a little bit of a trouble when you're going ahead and doing your piping. So we'll go ahead and mix these two and get them nice and creamed together. Now that you've got your peanut butter and your butter creamed together really nicely, this is when you can go ahead and start adding your powdered sugar. We have about a half a bag of powdered sugar here, so that will be plenty. So you just go ahead and add your powdered sugar. I usually just keep about 3/4 of a cup of milk handy for this part of the process. And we just go ahead and start our mixer back up. Just a very little bit at a time, drizzle some milk in and let it go until we have just the right consistency for piping your icing. Now this is exactly what your peanut butter icing will look like once you're all done and it's all creamed together. It has a very nice, super light, fluffy, creamy texture. And we'll go ahead and we'll take the bulk of this out now to go ahead and set aside for icing our cupcakes. And then we'll leave a little bit in here. We'll add our cream cheese to it, get it even smoother and even creamier for our filling. So now that we've got our peanut butter icing reserved aside for icing the tops of our cupcakes, we're going to go ahead and put in 4 ounces of softened cream cheese. So we go ahead with a remaining 3/4 of a cup or so of our icing, and we add our 4 ounces of cream cheese. We'll whip those together, add a touch more milk if we need to make sure it's super creamy and smooth, and we'll have our filling for our cupcakes. So this is going to be your texture, your creaminess that you want for your cream cheese peanut butter filling. You'll see it's ultra smooth, very, very creamy. So that's the perfect texture for your cream filling for these peanut butter cupcakes. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to get our pastry bags ready. Just take 2 pastry bags, each one with a large size tip. The one for your filling does not matter what tip it is, just as long as it has a large opening. It can be just a large circular, whatever large opening tip you prefer to use or you have around. Your tip for your icing, you may want to have that be a star, just to make your icing look nice. You can also use a large round for your tip for your icing as well. It's whatever preference you have for your look of your cupcakes. So we'll go ahead and get our tips in our bag, and then we'll fill and decorate our cupcakes. Now that you're ready to decorate and your cupcakes are nice and cool, this is a very easy process. Keep one bag to one side, one to the other, so you know which one is your filling and which one is your icing. Make sure you don't have a lot of air bubbles in your pastry bag, but literally you'll take your tip and you can see your filling about ready to start to head out, and you just plunge your tip into your cupcake. And you just squeeze gently and you'll see your cupcake start to expand a little bit. That easy. You don't need to core your cupcakes or anything like that. You just push that in. Squeeze your pastry bag until you see your cupcakes start to expand a little bit. Now that you have your cupcakes all filled with your peanut butter cream cheese filling, now we can go ahead and we can decorate the tops of our cupcakes.